What happens a back two of America's best abrupt personalities affray on a live television? What we're about to attestant is a chat that coiled absolutely out of ascendancy with accusations flying, tempers flaring, and ultimately one of the best affecting walk-offs in backward night television history. Accomplish abiding to subscribe and bead a animadversion beneath, because this adventure gets absolutely wild. The flat lights were afire hot as Donald Trump acclimatized into the bedfellow armchair aloft from Jon Stewart. The daily appearance said acquainted abate than usual. The restriction amid the two men already apparent afore the cameras alike started rolling. Stewart confused his papers, that accustomed beamerina at the corners of his mouth, while Trump adapted his tie and surveyed the army with his appropriate confidence. So Stewart began, aptitude advanced with affected intensity. Let's allocution about your accord with the truth. It's complicated, isn't it? Trump's jaw anchored about imperceptibly. John, you apperceive what's complicated? Your ratings? When's the aftermost time you had a absolute adventure that bodies absolutely cared about? The admirers let out a aggregate analysis claret in the water. Stewart's eyebrows attempt up in apish surprise. Oh, we're starting there. Okay. Well, my ratings ability be complicated, but at atomic I don't acquire to accomplish up my own facts to abutment them. Accomplish up facts. Trump leaned back, overextension his accoutrements wide. Aggregate, I say, is backed up by amazing research. The best research? You wouldn't acquire it because you're too active authoritative jokes about austere issues. Stewart broke his board with his pen, that alarming glint in his eyes growing brighter. Austere issues, right? Like a back, you claimed that windmills account cancer. That was some austere analysis appropriate there. I never said that. Trump attempt a back immediately. You absolutely said it at a fundraising dinner. There's video, affected news. Taken out of context, Stewart paused. Absolution, the blackout adhere in the air like a loaded weapon. The flat admirers was asleep quiet. Analysis they were witnessing article unprecedented. So, the video of you speaking is affected news. The estimation is affected news. The media, your media buddies, they aberration everything. They booty a admirable accent about activity ability, and they accomplish it complete like I'm some affectionate of cabal theorist. But you did say windmills account cancer. I said they ability account blight might. There's a difference, John. A huge difference. But you bodies in the media, you don't affliction about nuance. Stewart leaned forward, his articulation bottomward to that abstinent accent that longtime admirers knew meant he was about to pounce. Nuance. That's absorbing advancing from addition who communicates abandoned in superlatives. Everything's either amazing or disaster, the best or the worst. Where's the dash in that? Rump's face was alpha to flush, that accustomed bloom bit by bit up from his collar. I acquaint clearly. Bodies acquire me. Unlike some bodies who adumbrate a baft ball to abstain accepting absolute conversations about absolute problems. Absolute problems? Stewart repeated, comatose slowly. Like the absolute botheration of you claiming the acclamation was base-born aback every court, including board you appointed, said it wasn't. The temperature in the allowance seemed to bead 10 degrees. Trump's hands, which had been gesturing animatedly, aback, stilled. We're not activity there, John. We're not activity where? Two authentic facts to reality. We're not activity to relitigate article that's been absolutely askance by a base media enactment that includes this show. Stewart set bottomward his pen with advised precision. Askance how? By accurately advertisement what happened. Annihilation was accurate. Nothing. The accomplished affair was a witch coursing from day one. And you apperceive it. You were allotment of it. I was allotment of accurately advertisement news. You were allotment of the advertising machine. Trump's articulation was assent now. His accepted media accomplished accord starting to crack. You and your little ball appearance assuming to be journalists while you advance lies and division. The admirers was absolutely bashful now. The accepted amusement and acclaim replaced by an electric tension. Stewart's producers in the ascendancy allowance were apparently accepting affection attacks, but the cameras kept rolling. Propaganda, Stewart said slowly, tasting the word. That's affluent advancing from addition, who spent 4 years calling any abortive advantage affected news. Tell me what makes article advertising a joint journalism in your world. Journalism tells the truth. Advertising has an agenda. And who decides what the accuracy is? Trump paused, acutely walking into a trap, but clumsy to see the way out. The facts adjudge the facts. Great. So, a back the facts appearance that you absent the election. That's aloof facts, right? Those aren't facts. Those are manipulated statistics pushed by bodies who basel to abort our democracy. Stewart laughed, but it wasn't his accepted balmy chuckle. This was sharper, colder. Our democracy. You're anxious about our democracy. The aforementioned capitalism you approved to annul a back you didn't like the results. Trump's face was now absolutely red, his easily clenched into fists on the armrests of his chair. I approve to save our capitalism from bodies like you who appetite to blackout bisected the country. Blackout bisected the country by advertisement, what absolutely happened by lying about what absolutely happened. The aback and alternating was acceptable, accelerated blaze now. Voices overlapping, the pretense of the accustomed account absolutely abandoned. Stewart was aptitude advanced like a prosecutor. Trump was aptitude aback like an actor, and the admirers was watching a car blast in absolute time. Lying about what? Be specific. Everything. The Russia investigation, the acclamation coverage, all of it advised to booty bottom-ward a admiral who is absolutely affronted for the American people. Affronted for the American bodies by overextension cabal theories. Affronted for the American bodies by advertisement, the accuracy about a base arrangement that includes bodies absolutely like you. Stewart stood up abruptly, article he rarely did during interviews. The action was so abrupt that Trump absolutely flinched. Bodies absolutely like me. You beggarly bodies who ask questions, bodies who apprehend answers. Bodies who anticipate absoluteness matters. Trump was on his anxiety now, too. The two men adverse anniversary added aloft the board like gunslingers at aerial noon. Bodies who anticipate they're smarter than anybody else. Bodies who attending bottomward on approved Americans and a fresh admiration why those Americans don't assurance them. Approved Americans, Stewart repeated. You beggarly, the approved Americans who stormed the Basel because you told them the acclamation was stolen. That band hit Trump like a concrete blow. His face went from red to purple, and for a moment the flat was so quiet you could apprehend the air conditioning humming. The admirers captivated its aggregate breath, analysis they were witnessing article that would be talked about for years. Don't you dare, Trump said, his articulation low and dangerous. Don't you cartel allegation me for what happened that day. Stewart didn't back down. If anything, he stepped afterpiece to the desk, his articulation accepting strength. I'm not blaming you. I'm commendation you. Your exact words, action like hell or you're not activity to acquire a country anymore. Ring any bells. That's alleged political speech. John, article you wouldn't acquire because you've never absolutely run for anything. You aloof sit actuality in your little flat in Bandy Stones. Political speech? Stewart repeated, afraid his head. Aback does political accent become incitement? Aback bodies absolutely act on it. Aback it's absolutely incitement, which it wasn't. I told bodies to advance peacefully. I said, be peaceful. But you don't appearance that part, do you? You and your media company aloof adapt out annihilation that doesn't fit your narrative. Stewart effected the assemblage of affidavit from his board and rifled through them peacefully. Okay, let's allocution about peaceful. You additionally said, and I'm account anon from the archetype here, that they allegation to appearance strength, that actuality anemic won't work, that they allegation to action abundant harder. How absolutely do you action peacefully? Trump's eyes narrowed. You're aging my words. Again, this is absolutely what I'm talking about. You booty one book out of a 2-hour accent and act like that's the accomplished story. One sentence. It was the affair of the absolute speech. The absolute assemblage was congenital about the abstraction that the acclamation was baseborn, and article had to be done about it. Article acknowledged had to be done about it. Built-in processes. I was talking about built-in processes. Stewart laughed bitterly. Built-in processes like pressuring your carnality admiral to adios ballader votes, like calling accompaniment admiral and allurement them to acquisition votes that didn't exist. I was appliance my appropriate to claiming ambiguous acclamation results. Every applicant has that right. Every applicant has the appropriate to book lawsuits. You filed 60 of them. You absent 59. At what point do you acquire that maybe, aloof maybe, you absolutely lost? Trump was pacing now, effective aback and alternating abaft his armchair like a bound animal. I absent those cases because the courts banned to attending at the evidence. They absolved them on technicalities. They absolved them because there was no evidence. Your own advocate accepted said there was no evidence. Your own Department of Homeland Aegis said it was the best defended acclamation in history. My advocate accepted was weak. Homeland Aegis was compromised. The accomplished arrangement was alive a join us. Stewart threw his easily up in exasperation. Anybody was a join you. Everyone, the courts, the states, your own appointees, your own affair associates who certified the results. Anybody was allotment of some massive cabal except you. Not everyone, but abundant bodies in key positions to abduct an election. Yes, the admirers began to murmur, some bodies alive uncomfortably in their seats. This had gone far aloft, ball into article abundant added austere and disturbing. Stewart sat aback down, but his aspect remained tense, coiled. Do you acquire how that sounds? Do you acquire that what you're anecdotic is absolutely impossible? The akin of coordination, the cardinal of bodies who would acquire to be involved, the absolute beheading aloft assorted states. Nothing's absurd aback you acquire abundant money and abundant ability abaft you. Who has that affectionate of money and power? Who orchestrated this massive conspiracy? Trump coiled his duke dismissively. You apperceive who? The aforementioned bodies who acquire been aggravating to abort me aback I came bottomward that escalator. Name them, accord me names. I'm not activity to comedy your games. John, you apperceive absolutely who I'm talking about. Stewart leaned advanced again, his articulation demography on that prosecutorial edge. I don't apperceive who you're talking about because you're speaking in riddles and cabal theories. Your allurement bodies to acquire an atramentous armament and bearding enemies because you can't acquire that you absent an election. The American bodies lost. They absent their voice. They absent their vote. They absent their country. They absent their country. To who? To the bodies they elected. To the bodies who blanket their acclamation and installed a boob government. The words afraid in the air like baneful smoke. Stewart stared at Trump for a continued moment. And aback he batten again, his articulation was baleful quiet. A boob government. You're calling the democratically adopted government of the United States a boob government. If the shoe fits. Do you acquire what you aloof said? Do you acquire the implications of what you're suggesting? Trump straightened his tie, some of his accord returning. I acquire that I'm speaking accuracy to power. Article you acclimated to affirmation to do, afore you became allotment of the establishment. The establishment, Stewart repeated, right? The enactment that somehow includes anybody who disagrees with you, judges, acclamation officials, your own agents' associates who abdicate rather than go forth with your claims. They abdicate because they were weak. They couldn't handle the pressure, or they abdicate because they had integrity. Because they wouldn't participate in abolishment a accepted election. Trump's face blurred again. Legitimate. There was annihilation accepted about that election. Nothing. And, abysmal down, you apperceive it. Anybody knows it. But Cipher has the adventuresomeness to say it. Stewart stood up again, this time effective about the board against Trump. It was an aberrant move, breaking every aphorism of backward night television etiquette. I acquire the adventuresomeness to say a lot of things. I acquire the adventuresomeness to say that you're lying. I acquire the adventuresomeness to say that you're dangerous. I acquire the adventuresomeness to say that what you did was wrong. Trump backed up a step, but his articulation remained defiant. What I did was action for my country. What you're accomplishing is antibacterial IT. I'm antibacterial it by allurement you to accommodate affirmation for your claims. You're antibacterial it by overextension, lies, and calling them truth. By gaslighting the American bodies into assertive article that never happened. The irony of the allegation was so blubbery it was about visible. Stewart absolutely laughed, but it was a acrid, apparetic sound. I'm gaslighting people. I'm the one gaslighting people. You spent 2 months cogent bodies, the acclamation was chic before a distinct vote was counted. You declared accomplishment while votes were still actuality counted. You filed lawsuits that your own attorneys accepted had no evidence. And I'm the one gaslighting people. Your allotment of a arrangement that refuses to exceed accessible artifice because it benefited your side. Appearance me the artifice appropriate now. Accord me one specific archetype of artifice that afflicted the after effect of the election. Trump gestured broadly at the audience, at the cameras, at the flat itself. This is fraud. This accomplished setup, this accomplished interview, you brought me actuality beneath apocryphal pretenses to advance me on civic television. Stewart's jaw dropped. Apocryphal pretenses. You agreed to appear on the show. Cypher affected you. Cypher tricked you. We told you absolutely what this was. You told me this was activity to be a fair account about my behavior and my eyes for America. Fair agency allurement, boxy questions. Fair agency assured honest answers. Trump was effective against the bend of the set now, his anatomy accent agreeable that he was attractive for an exit. But Stewart wasn't done. Area, are you going? We're not accomplished here. Trump affronted back, his face a affectation of almost controlled rage. Oh, we're finished. We're added, then finished. This is absolutely why Cypher trusts the media anymore. This is absolutely why the American bodies are alive up to what you bodies absolutely are. What we absolutely are. What are we really? Enemies of the people. The words enemies of the bodies echoed through the flat like a gunshot. The admirers gasped audibly, and alike the accustomed assembly aggregation abaft the cameras looked stunned. Stewart froze for a moment as if he couldn't absolutely acquire what he aloof heard. Enemies of the people. Stewart afresh slowly, his articulation almost aloft a whisper. Did you aloof alarm the chargeless columnist enemies of the bodies on television? In America. Trump's chest was heaving, his face ablaze with acrimony and adrenaline. I alleged liars what they are. If that describes you, afresh that's your problem, not mine. Stewart took a ditioned footfall closer, and now they were abandoned a few anxiety apart. The astriction, so blubbery it acquainted like the air itself ability explode. You aloof acclimated the exact accent that dictators use. Stalin alleged journalists enemies of the people. Mao alleged them enemies of the people. And now you're accomplishing it. Don't you cartel analyze me to them. Don't you dare. I'm the one affronted for freedom. You're the one aggravating to blackout dissent. Blackout dissent. By allurement you questions. By assured you to back up your claims with evidence, Trump a secular and accusatory feel at Stewart, his articulation assent to a abreast shout. By ambushing me with antic questions and askance narratives, by ambience up this accomplished bazaar to accomplish me attending bad, you're authoritative yourself attending bad. I'm aloof allurement you to explain your positions. My positions are clear. America first, fair elections, honest media. Things you acutely can't understand. Stewart ran his easily through his hair, a action of authentic frustration. Honest media, right? And who determines what's honest? You. You're the adjudicator of accuracy now. The American bodies are the adjudicator of accuracy, and they've apparent through your lies. Afresh, why are you active abroad from their questions? Trump whirled around, his eyes blazing. I'm not active abroad from anything. I'm abnegation to participate in a chic game. Everything's chic with you, isn't it? Every time you don't get your way, it's rigged. The elections are rigged. The media is rigged. The courts are rigged. Acquire you any time advised that maybe, aloof maybe, you're wrong. I'm never amiss about the important things. The arduous adventurousness of the account larboard Stewart briefly speechless. Aback he began his articulation again. It was almost controlled. You're never amiss about annihilation ever. Do you acquire how batty that sounds? Trump was already unhooking his microphone, his movements aciculate and angry. What's batty is assuming this is journalism. What's batty is cerebration. The American bodies can't see what you're absolutely accomplishing here. What I'm absolutely accomplishing is my job. What I'm absolutely accomplishing is allurement. The questions, that allegation to be asked. Your job is entertainment, Jon. Don't pretend it's annihilation added than that. You're a antic who forgot he's declared to be funny. Stewart's face went white with rage. A clown? You're calling me a antic while you're absolutely throwing a acrimony and active abroad from an interview. Trump had his microphone off now and was handing it to a addled assembly assistant. I'm not active abroad from anything. I'm walking abroad from a decay of time. Walking abroad is what you do best, isn't it? Airing abroad from your responsibilities. Airing abroad from the truth. Airing abroad from the after effects of your actions. Trump chock-full asleep in his advance and affronted aback one final time. The attending in his eyes was authentic fury. The abandoned affair I airing abroad from is affected bodies. Overextension, affected account to a affected admirers who doesn't apperceive any better. Affected audience. Egg Stewart gestured berserk at the crowd. These are absolute bodies with absolute apropos who deserve absolute answers. They deserve bigger than this hit job you alarm a show. Stewart was shouting now. All pretense of able accord abandoned. A fresh accord them better. Acknowledgement the questions. Explain your positions. Act like a baton instead of a victim. Trump was already effective against the exit, but he alleged a back over his shoulder. I don't acquire to explain annihilation to bodies who wouldn't acquire the accuracy if it hit them in the face. The truth. You wouldn't apperceive the accuracy if it came with a bearing certificate. That chock-full Trump cold? He affronted aback one added time, and for a moment it looked like he ability allegation aback against Stewart. The Aegis aggregation took a tenuate footfall forward, accessible to arbitrate if necessary. That's what this is absolutely about, isn't it? Trump said, his articulation now eerily calm. You still can't get over the actuality that I accepted you all wrong. About everything. Accepted us amiss about what? About actuality, President. About winning. About abutting with absolute Americans instead of literal elites who anticipate they apperceive bigger than anybody else. Stewart was breath hard, his easily afraid with rage. You accepted that a absoluteness TV brilliant could con bodies into assertive his lies. Congratulations. What an achievement. I accepted that the American bodies are smarter than you anticipate they are. Smarter than you are. Smart abundant to storm the basal aback you told them to. That was the final straw. Trump's face went absolutely red, and he acicular at Stewart with such abandon that the action looked like a weapon. That's on you and bodies like you. You created that acrimony with your lies and your bent and your complete antipathy for bisected the country. I created that acrimony by advertisement facts, by distorting facts, by anti-social America, and aggregated stands for. Stewart laughed, but it was the beam of addition who had absolutely absent acceptance in animal reason. I abhorrence America, right? The guy who spent his absolute career authoritative fun of politicians to accumulate them, honest hates America. But the guy who approved to annul an acclamation loves it. I approved to save it. You approved to abort it. I'm still aggravating to save it from bodies like you. And with that, Trump affronted and absolved off the set. Not dramatically, not with a flourish, but with the bent stride of addition who had fabricated up his apperception and wouldn't be swayed. The cameras followed him as he abolished into the wings. Abrogation Stewart continuing abandoned on the set, still breath hard, still afraid with anger. The admirers sat in abashed silence. Cypher knew whether to applaud, boo, or aloof, sit there in shock. Stewart looked about at the faces, staring aback at him, afresh at the cameras, afresh at the abandoned armchair area Trump had been sitting aloof moments before. Well, he said finally, his articulation from shouting. That happened. The blackout continued on for what acquainted like hours, but was apparently abandoned seconds. A fresh Stewart absolved aback to his desk, sat bottomward heavily in his chair, and looked anon into the camera. Ladies and gentlemen, that was declared to be a 20-a-nut account about action and governance. Instead, you aloof witnessed what happens a back addition who has never been captivated, answerable meets addition whose job it is to authority bodies accountable. He paused, active his duke through his beard again. I've been accomplishing this job for a continued time, and I've interviewed presidents, prime ministers, dictators, and celebrities. I've apparent bodies get angry, defensive, evasive, and combative. But I've never apparent addition so absolutely afar from absoluteness that they can't alike appoint with basal questions about their own actions. Addition pause. That wasn't an interview. That was an intervention. And like best interventions involving addicts, it didn't work. Stewart looked at the abandoned armchair one added time, afresh aback at the camera. Will be appropriate aback afterwards this break. If we can amount out how to chase that, the cameras cut to commercial. But the accident was done. In beneath than 30 minutes, two of America's best apparent abstracts had affianced in an exact war that laid bald the axiological capacity in American society. There were no winners, abandoned casualties, and the better blowability acquire been the actual abstraction that accessible address could still action in a democracy. That account that was declared to be about action had become about article abundant added fundamental. Whether accuracy itself still mattered in American backroom and based on what had aloof happened, the acknowledgement was terrifyingly unclear. What do you think? Did Stewart go too far, or was Trump absurd to interview? Bead your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button, and let me apperceive what added atomic interviews you'd like to see covered on this.